The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today for
Worship Wednesday.
I just saw something very funny.
Well, yes, we've been having a good time. Then we decided to start hitting record. So
Yeah, I feel like you're really good at that.
the hype.
Yeah, you get us chuckling, and the next thing I know,
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. There's a lot of there's probably people wondering, like, wonder what that sounds like. There's one person that knows. That would be my wife.
Yes.
Because she hears the part that's chopped off the front.
Poor Susan, she's a saint. So good.
So, all right. Well, welcome in,
Welcome, thank
Pastor
you,
Zack and Noah.
Hey guys.
Got a lot of stuff getting ready for last week.
Yes, sir.
I did an episode with Pastor Kevin. We talked about camp meeting and kind of like where it is and why it is and who all's invited, which the answers to that are everyone's invited. It's down in Logan, and we do it because it's a great time.
There you go.
And we'd love to have everybody come down. It's a time of fellowship. It's a time of teaching. It's a time of revival. It's all those things. So
It's gonna be fun.
all right. So let's just jump right in there.
Let's jump in.
What's going on?
Well, the reason we're talking about it here today on Worship Wednesday is, if you haven't heard or seen the flyer, the Shepherd team has been asked to lead worship for camp meeting this year, and we're very excited about it.
Well, let me correct you, because technically, as I'm reading the flyer,
I'm trying my best here, Joe.
it says nightly worship by Reverend Zack Zaborski and friends.
And friends.
I'm just a friend.
Yeah. Well, at least you made the friends list.
But we're assuming your friends are here at Shepherd.
Yes.
So
Yes, my Shepherd friends. The main reason we put it that way when we first started talking about this is because if you don't know, camp meeting, there's going to be 8 services, and they are down in Logan, which is, about 45-minute drive from Gahanna-ish to an hour with traffic, whatever you want to do.
yeah, somewhere in between there.
And so I was a little concerned that with the amount of services and the distance and the time, that it would be more difficult to fill all the positions with just people from Shepherd. And so I was initially planning on calling some of my buddies from other churches and saying, hey, we have a need this night. Can you jump in and help us? And then kind of plan it from that. Well, to my surprise and enjoyment, we were able to fill up every single night, full team, with just Shepherd team people. So it will be everybody that will be playing is a part of Shepherd, either here in Gahanna or Johnstown. And so, yeah. So the and friends is just Shepherd Church.
Well, that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. And especially, for people that are wondering what worship is like down at camp meeting, you'll have a pretty good idea, since it's going to be what you normally do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. And I'm going to say this as kindly as I can without trashing anything that's happened in the past, if I will. Mm-hmm. If you've been to a camp meeting in the past, it's not exactly like a Sunday morning experience that we have here at Shepherd, specifically when it comes to the worship time. And I am not belittling anybody's experience. I'm not saying anything negative, but it has traditionally been a little more old school, if you will. It's been a little more gospel oriented. They'd bring in like a song evangelist who would play to a track and sing on the piano, or I know they had like a family band that used to come down, and they're all extraordinarily talented. But there was, for me, and this is just my experience, it felt like there was a bit of a disconnect when it came to the worship part of it. I felt like I was hearing really good songs and enjoying what I was experiencing, but I never felt connected in the worship. It just kind of felt like, all right, here's the song part of service. And so when our district superintendent called me up and was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing worship for camp meeting? kind of had some reservations because I'm like, well, you got to understand what's been done in the past is not my wheelhouse. That's not my style. It's not what I'm good at. So I just asked him, what's your vision for camp meeting this year? What are you wanting to see happen? And, he really expressed the need for some changes to happen to where we can create an atmosphere where younger people are feeling welcome and want to be a part of it and get excited about it. And it's not just an event that people come to because they've done it since they were kids, but it's a moment where they're coming because they're excited to have an encounter with the Holy Spirit. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, we're your team. Like, that's what we want to see happen. And so I'm really excited to go down and just be able to just get really honest with people in the room. And, what we talk about here on Sunday morning all the time is we're not here to entertain you. We're not here so that, you can check off the music happened at camp meeting. We want to come down and worship until the roof comes off this place. And we want to see God move, and we want to invite people to join us in that. And so I'm really excited to see what the Holy Spirit wants to do. Been praying a ton about this and planning and preparing. And I feel God's already moving and doing things, and it's stirring up in the hearts of people. Like I've heard more people say they were excited about camp meeting this year than I have in the past. And it's not because we're leading worship. I think it's truly because people are sensing that God's going to do something different this year, and really excited to be a part of it. It's going to be cool.
Well, and kind of to speak into some of the differences from the past, in the time before Noah was alive, it was more what I would say presentational, in the sense that it used to be a thing where you would have what are called specials, and somebody would stand up and they would sing, and like at the end of the song they'd sing an incredibly high note, and you're like, wow, and like they'd hold it out for a really long time. And not to say that you can't worship through that.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
As I was coming up and in the 90s, like I really enjoyed the music. One of them I could think of that was kind of presentational like that would be Steve Green. Like he would sing this kind of big Christian anthem, and by the end of it, you're like, yes, and but at the same time, like not everybody could sing along with Steve Green, when he's just like holding this high note away at the end. And it was more of like kind of vicarious worship through I'm listening to how you're worshiping, and I'm kind of rooting you on and kind of worshiping as you're performing kind of thing. Whereas I think what that has kind of transitioned to is it's less about the person that is up front, and it's more about how can we as a group participate together in a worship experience. And so that we've kind of seen that transition, I think, in different stages over the past few years. Like I'm thinking of some previous camp meetings kind of in the light that you were talking about. Like I can specifically hear in my head some of the kind of more presentational songs where somebody was like, they would do one or two songs like everybody sing together, and now take a seat, watch what I'm getting ready to do.
I'm about to blow your mind.
and I say that kind of facetiously, but I mean, it was enjoyable, but there was kind of a point like, oh, okay, well, that was very nice. Good job.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of almost kind of fully moved over now to what we would consider a more present day worship experience, where the focus is let's all sing worship songs together. So this raises some questions in my mind. First of all, we got to bring Noah into this conversation.
Yes.
So,
one of the friends. I'm just a friend.
one of the friends.
I don't get to talk much.
As Zach's friend. So tell me you kind of where you're going to be at things in the week, and how, what what your role is going to be in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more of a utility guy, like a utility player. I'm kind of going to be more filling in where we're not going to have somebody for the night. So I'll be playing drums, bass, guitar,
Spoons.
Washboard.
Yeah. I'll be banjoing a little bit. Shout out to Larry. Larry gave me a banjo, so I've been playing banjo.
Nice.
But, yeah, kind of my role is kind of honestly just support for him, to kind of more so wherever we need somebody to be able to fill that and to be able to create as less stress on him as possible, that he doesn't have to worry about, hey, somebody backed out for drums. All right, put me in for drums. If we need a bass player, hey, throw me on bass. So that's kind of where I fit, and kind of just more so reflecting worship as well. Even though I'm not necessarily leading, I can worship from a drum kit and I can worship from a bass. And so being able to fill that in and also kind of create that experience as well as, hey, I'm going to model worship from the platform as well, so that other people can feel free to, kind of get a little weird, get a little wild. So,
Speaking to that point, most Sundays I'm in the control room. And so I'm seeing what's going on with the worship team through the eyes of about 6 or 7 different cameras.
Right.
And oftentimes when we're, directing whoever might be serving as director that week, one of the things we're looking at as we're transitioning from camera shot to camera shot is kind of the point that Noah was making, is that it's not necessarily just about who's singing the lead right at that moment, but I can see in my mind's eye like times when Jake is playing guitar and doesn't have a microphone, but he's just singing along and worshiping, and I think that does connect with people that are in the congregation, and they realize he's not just there to fill a role, and he's not just there to like make quote unquote music, but he's worshiping along with us. And I think it's something that's a really healthy environment at Shepherd, where at any point you can kind of be looking around the worship team and realize they're all actually in the moment. They're not just playing, okay, let's get through this song. They're in the moment of worship. And that looks different for different people. Sometimes it's more subdued. Sometimes it's a little more out there. But even as we're doing the live stream, we try to capture some of that feel of what it's like, how different people might be worshiping, because we assume that there's people that are watching, or even people in our congregation that can connect with different forms of worship. So I think it's really important what Noah is saying, like we see that modeled from the platform, whether you're playing drums or keys or whatever.
Right. Yep. And I think it's especially important for stuff like camp meeting, this kind of thing, for people to see that, because let's be honest, like we want non-believers to come to camp meeting, but a lot of times it's church people, right? And so those church people are guys that are serving at their churches, or people doing tech at their churches, or there might be a drummer in the room from their church. And to be able to look up and see, like, because when I go watch, a concert, or if I go to another church's worship night or whatever, because I'm a musician, I'm looking at those people, right? Like specifically drummers, because that was my first instrument ever. So I'm always looking out for the drummer. And it says something so special to me when I go to a worship night and I look up and I see the drummer who's behind, a glass shield in their own little bubble, but is still just as engaged in worship as anybody in front with a microphone. And I think it shows people that it's okay to worship without being the leader, quote unquote, of a song. Like you're still modeling worship. You're still leading worship. It's not, we talk about this on the podcast all the time. Leading worship is not, I have the solo on this song. Right. Leading worship is whatever role you are playing is worshiping within that role, and that will invite people into doing it with you. Yeah. And I know Noah's something I've always loved about Noah. I've known him for so long, since he was just, 13 when I met you, and watching him start to fill all those roles, when he started playing guitar and when he was a drummer, and still worshiping while he was doing that, even before he ever started leading. You were leading worship even before you ever sang a song, right? So I appreciate that about you.
So one thing that is kind of interest to me and maybe other people that are, would be in a position where they might have to plan worship and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, you had mentioned at the top, like you got 8 services. Yeah. And so essentially 2 months of your normal work is happening right in 1 week. Yeah. So give us a little bit of insight and maybe a view behind the curtain of like, how are you picking a worship set, especially when you probably are not getting the kind of input from the speaker that night that you would normally get, say, if you were preparing worship at Shepherd and we know who's preaching this week and we know what the topic is and you can try to coordinate things. Mm-hmm. Here we've got Reverend Eddie and Reverend J.K. Warwick are going to be speaking as kind of the main speakers in the evenings. Mm-hmm. And like, how do you make that work?
Right.
And like, what's the template? What's the framework to say, okay, I'm going to do these songs this night, this song that night, and kind of walk us through that a little bit.
For sure. So we kind of we did touch on this a few episodes back when we talk about like planning a service, right? And especially ones where you're going into not knowing, what the speakers are going to be saying each night. We went into this with a tremendous amount of prayer. Like, okay, Holy Spirit, we need you to help us plan this thing because that's 8 nights worth of songs, at least 4 songs a night. And then you add the dynamic of being sure that we are leading to all generations, right? Yeah. So that kind of throws in a little extra wrench, if you will, in the planning. So I just made a couple stipulations for myself going into it that I want to do something that either is or resembles a traditional hymn every single service, something that at least touches on that, for some of our older congregations that grew up singing hymns. And a lot of times churches feel like, oh, well, all we do is new stuff. All we do is the popular stuff. And we never go back and touch on, the beauty of the hymn. And so something I love that we do here, and I'm sure many people think we don't do it enough, and that's fine. But trying to touch back on some of those things, bringing a hymn and maybe revitalizing it a little bit or putting it into a tag of a song, a current song, and making sure we're touching on that, but also not staying just in that place. Mm-hmm. We're trying to push things forward. We're trying to bring in this new younger generation. And so making sure that we're not just like, all right, we're going to do an upbeat Hillsong tune at the beginning. And then the next song, we're going to say, pull out your hymnal and go to page, whatever. It's not like a cut.
Yeah.
It's not 2 things. We're all doing this together. And so we're kind of, I don't want to say this, not asking people, but inviting people from both ends of that spectrum to kind of meet somewhere in the middle to have a moment with the Holy Spirit. And so that was one of the biggest things I wanted to do when we were planning this whole week. But honestly, like one of the biggest miracles about all of this was the amount of people that just stepped up and says, hey, I'm available. And a lot of them was like, hey, I can do this night and this night. And many people were like, whatever night you need me on, just put me on. So then going through and just saying, okay, I know this person can play Monday and Tuesday. So then if they're playing these nights, it'd be a cool opportunity to let them lead something because they're going to be there on there giving up their time. But this person might not be leading something because they're singing 3 of the 8 instead of 1, just trying to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to worship while they're there. So yeah, and then musician wise, like, again, I'm so grateful for Noah and the fact that he's a multi-instrumentalist and is available. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, yeah, I don't have a drummer. He's like, I'll play drums. It's like,
right.
That one night.
And I'm not even that expensive.
Yeah. That's the benefit of having your own staff. Like, hey, exactly. You're already getting paid.
I know. So. The timing of you coming on full time was perfect.
That's all you're getting. That's it.
Get you a cold cut sandwich. But so yeah, just a lot has gone into the prep work of it. Like you said, it's 2 months worth of services in 1 week. And so the one thing I'm a little concerned about is like, we're going to be singing every night for 8 nights. You know, that takes a little toll on the old voice after a while. So being able to kind of split things up and making sure that like, I'm not leading everything. That's
right.
Not, you know, hopefully, you know, by now my heart is I don't want to be the Zack show ever, even though it might say it on the
Zack
flyer.
and friends.
Yeah. I have friends too. And I want to use my friends and their gifts and talents to lead. So
and that doesn't even touch on the multicultural aspect of it all as well. Like, because we're a global church, and that's a huge part of who we are as the Church of the Nazarene, there are different ethnic groups and nationalities just on our district, just around Central Ohio and South Ohio. And so even planning stuff, you know, in Spanish and in French and all the trying to get as many cultures as we can into this has been interesting and difficult as well.
That's been a new one for me because it's not something I've ever had to plan. It's just never
before
been my
you were
wheelhouse.
just bilingual, English and hick.
Right, exactly. Right. I can speak English and hillbilly. But yeah, so that's been really cool to see other churches coming together. So we're actually, the first night we have, her name is Hennessy's, and she's from New Albany. Mm-hmm. So she'll be coming down to help us sing some stuff in Spanish. And so she'll be worshiping with us in Spanish. And then the final night, the 13th, is the multicultural service. And so it's going to be representative of so many different cultures that are within the South Central Ohio District. And so we're still working through that. We're still got a few things figured out. But we got somebody who's going to be coming and singing in French. We got somebody who's going to be singing in Spanish. We're working on a few other different languages to be represented. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be cool.
And, you know, I kind of wanted to go back for a minute when you were talking about, you know, picking different musical styles and like trying to have something that's more traditional kind of weaved in with and making it congruent with everything else that's going on. Mm-hmm. It's that it's not fan service. And I think I want to make that point, that it's not like, oh, we're gonna make songs so that everybody will be happy.
Right.
Because if you're chasing fan service, you'll never go far enough. No. And I'm sure you've seen that. So like, even if I picked the right song, I didn't do it the right way, or I didn't do it the right number of times, or I didn't do it long enough, or I should have done more. And like, so it's never about fan service. It is about recognizing that as a collective body, there are many things that help people come to a point of worship. Yeah. And so, although this one group of kind of subset may find worship easier in this one style, there may be another group that finds worship easier in a different style. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a matter of, there's no inconsistency there. It is, what can we do to make this worship environment as you know, open as possible to allow as many people to engage in worship. Exactly. And so that might mean that there is a variety of different things going on, not to try to satisfy and check a box that says, hey, I did one of those songs for you.
Right. Yeah.
But to be able to say, I recognize that it's easier for you to connect and to worship through some of this. And so we're trying to give everybody the opportunity to really get to that point of worship.
Yeah. Yep. And that's our goal for this whole thing, is we just want to see revival break out. We want to see God move, and whatever we can do to create an environment where that can happen. I mean, that's what we want to see accomplished, is just to see everybody really engaging in worship.
All right. Well, it is happening July 6th through 13th.
Yep.
That's Sunday to Sunday. On Sundays, it's at 5 p.m. And on the weekdays, it's at 7 p.m. That's so that you can all get down there in time and back. It is in Logan, Ohio at the Hocking Hills Retreat Center. You can go to shepnaz.org and take a look at our upcoming events. There'll be some details there on the calendar. Also, you can go to sconaz.org. That's sconaz.org, and take a look at the district calendar there as well. For Pastor Zack and Noah, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.
And don't forget the popsicles for children after service.